Good morning, or wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day. I'm really delighted to be here and talk to you about FHIR, which I'm very passionate about because I think without any doubt it's leading the next wave in healthcare interoperability, and it's going to lead to a whole new generation of innovative applications. What I'd like to talk to you about in the next few minutes is how to manage FHIR APIs. This is extremely important for you to get the most out of building with FHIR. My name is Patrick Jameson. I'm a physician, a developer, and a product manager for InterSystems. Having worked with FHIR for the last several years, I've come to realize how important it is for the next wave in healthcare interoperability. What I hope to cover in the next few minutes is helping you understand what FHIR API Management is. We'll talk about some basic terms and how to get started. I want to give you a demo to show you actually how it works and how easy it is for you to be able to use FHIR APIs. So at the end of this, I hope you'll have an appreciation of how API management makes your life easier as a developer. I'm going to show you how you could get started with FHIR very easily using the FHIR Development portal built into our API Manager, and how to set up FHIR monitoring through a great visualization tool called Grafana. Well, why would you work with FHIR? Because you want to build the next wave in digital healthcare applications. These healthcare applications are going to tie mobile device and patient data and allow us to build things like an analytic and decision support repository. There's going to enable us to share information between patients and providers. InterSystems has always had a deep commitment to the FHIR standard. We're actively involved in FHIR development. We have members sitting on the FHIR board. We've had a deep and broad support for FHIR and Smart on FHIR, both at the server and client levels. We make it easy for you to use FHIR even with legacy systems. And we have one FHIR stack that goes across all of our InterSystems products, from Iris to Health to HealthShare and TrackCare. So why would you need to use an API manager? Well, because there's a lot involved in managing the API lifecycle. It starts with creating and publishing your FHIR APIs, so that other developers in your organization can use those FHIR APIs easily. But you will want to think about how you enforce usage policies of those APIs. So you may not want everyone to have access to every API. And you need to know how to control that access and how to control the traffic. How would you prevent, for example, denial of service attacks? As you get more sophisticated in your building your FHIR apps, you want to collect and analyze usage statistics, do performance monitoring, and possibly deploy a gateway that will allow you to manage multiple FHIR servers. So what can an API manager do for you? Well, it could expose those FHIR services that we've talked about and let people know how to access them. It can secure your FHIR server. Support the ability to scale up a FHIR server. So you're starting with development. Maybe you've started with an open source product, but now you want to go into production. You need the ability to scale that up, and an API manager could help you achieve that goal. It could also help you log and track who is making requests of your FHIR server, so we could track requests and responses and deliver FHIR metrics. I want to cover a few basic terms that I think you're going to need to know when using API managers. These are the three most important concepts you need to know. The first is a service. A service is really an endpoint for the gateway that will refer to the upstream APIs that you're managing. So your FHIR server will be behind this gateway, and the gateway will control traffic to and from the FHIR server. You will have the opportunity to create routes. These are how those requests are sent to the services. And a single service can have many routes, so you can control every one of those routes. The last concept that's important to understand is consumers. Consumers are the end users of your API. These are the ones that you may want to group together so you determine who could access which API, and it's used for security and logging. We have chosen to use Kong's enterprise product to help manage the APIs going to our FHIR server. The Kong gateway has a lot of very sophisticated features, including proxy caching, rate limiting, but it has all the capabilities that you would expect in an API manager. It could create consumers, routes, and services, and it can serve as a load balancer to multiple upstream targets. What's really great about this product is that it can essentially allow you to choose which plugins to use so you could configure the server in exactly the way you would like. Why we chose it is because we thought, without any doubt, it had the most scalable, modular functionality of any API manager. It's able to run on any infrastructure, similar to Iris for Health. So this makes it ideal when you're trying to scale your FHIR services into a production system. Additionally, it has an API development portal. We've learned through experience that FHIR is a complex standard. Many developers are just beginning to learn this. The FHIR Development portal makes FHIR application faster and easier, helps you understand, essentially, FHIR APIs quickly. To enable the FHIR portal, you use the Open API Specification. We've already done this for the standard FHIR resources, where we specify things like the endpoint, the different FHIR interactions, the pass and the search parameters that are defined in the FHIR specification, as well as the responses for those requests. Here's a partial sample of what an API catalog looks like, where every one of the FHIR services is listed, and so that you can easily just select the FHIR service that you want to query and query it. And I will give you a demo of that in the next few minutes. Now, there's a lot of different moving parts to managing FHIR servers. Here is a schematic that shows a lot of the different containers that were used to basically run with the API gateway and track and monitor that gateway using different containers called Prometheus, and a very exceptional visualization tool called Grafana. You can use this both with on-premise FHIR servers or the AWS, for example, FHIR service we're planning to launch in the near future. So what are the key takeaways? API management simplifies building applications. the development portal is a great tool to get started with FHIR, and it makes it very easy to monitor FHIR. I think you're going to have a lot of fun, and I hope you'll enjoy the demos.
So let me give you a quick orientation to the portal. The first thing you should observe is that in most cases, you access the InterSystems API Management portal through port 8002. This brings you to this overview page, which will show you normally your requests in the last 5 or 30 minutes, how many were successful, how many didn't get through, the number of workspaces you have, etc. We're going to go right to the development portal where we've exposed these FHIR APIs. So we go to our dev portals and we see that the default URL is at 8003. Take a look at that. This brings us to a splash screen, and if we click on documentation, you'll see the API catalog. These are all the resources that have FHIR resources that have been translated into OpenAPI. So we can select one of them, and now we could do some test queries or learn more about these FHIR resources. So this is the patient resource. It's a very important resource, obviously. And let's just see simply how we could do a query using the portal. I'm going to test this endpoint here, get patient by ID. And so I'm going to just put in an ID of a known patient, patient 6, make this API call, and you could see I get that request translated into curl. This is what you would use if you did it from the command line or from HTTP. And you could see we got one patient resource back. Now we could do much better and much more interesting queries. So we could come up here to get patient. We could test this endpoint. And let's say I decided I wanted to get all the male patients in the system right now. Just type in male for gender. Come down to the bottom here and make that API call. And if we scroll up, we can see the request, and at this point you see that we have a total of 639 patient resources in this bundle, and this is going to give us the URLs of those different patients. We could learn more about them. But in any event, what you see is this tool makes it fairly simple to understand what are the parameters that you need in a given FHIR query for different resources. Now let me turn to how we can do more in terms of securing this. And if you're interested, by the way, in more explanation of what you could do with querying, I think you should attend my FHIR search video that really goes into much more detail, show you some other tools around this. Now I'm back in the IAM dev portal, and I want to now secure my routes so that effectively authenticated access is necessary. What I could do here is I could go and create a plugin that could do that for me. So what I'm going to do here is add a new plugin, and I'm going to enable Key Authentication. I'm going to just enable it on the service, so I'll just create that. And now I could effectively make every user of this have a authorization key. So that gets us to the next big topic, and that's consumers. Here we have one FHIR user, and I've already set up credentials for this. I've generated a key called FHIR PM2. So that what this means now is if we want to access any information in the server, we're going to have to give that key. So let's take a look at that and see if that has actually been enabled. Well, I built a FHIR query app, and this app allows me to add keys, API keys. And so I'm going to add FHIR PM2. It's already selected. I'll submit that. Now let's see if I can access a resource. I'll go to FHIR R4. I'll generate a patient query, and let's generate patient 6. We know that works. I'll submit that, and you see we get back in the query, we get back the patient. We get the resources and all the information related to the patient. Now let's see if we change that, what would happen if we added the API key. Instead of FHIR PM2, let's just put FHIR PM3. Submit that. And we'll just do the same query again. And now you see that we have a forbidden code here, and we can't even retrieve the metadata because we don't have the right key. So I'm going to put that back, obviously, and we'll now take a look at another topic, FHIR monitoring. So lastly, I want to show you about how we can monitor the FHIR service. One plugin you could easily add is a plugin called Prometheus. This you could add as a plugin, and what it'll do is it collects metrics directly from the Kong API system. Once that's installed, we can use a visualization tool like Grafana. Now, I don't have time to talk about how to configure this, but it's actually pretty simple. You can manage your dashboards and import additional dashboards. And in the case of Kong, there's an official dashboard at 7424 that you could load, and it comes pre-configured. So that's pretty handy. So we'll go back to dashboards, and I'll use that Kong official dashboard. And you could see already we've made some requests on the system. And let's get the request in the last 5 minutes or so. We're going to basically now do some additional requests on this system. I want to generate some additional queries with my query builder tool, which you can learn about more in the FHIR search lecture. In this case, I'm going to do a patient query, and I'm going to do it by address city, and I'll do Woburn here. And if we submit that, we get a query back, and there's a total of 3 patients in this bundle. What's interesting here is you can go to the history page, and here's how we could run a bunch of queries. We could select, let's say, patient 6, and then this patient with Woburn. And now let's go ahead and add, well, let's make it 100 queries of each. So I'll go down to 100, and then I'll run these queries. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but we will get back the 200 queries have been now completed. Let's take a look then at our dashboard here. And you can see already we're getting a number of requests per second is going up. And we see the total request, total requests by different routes. We could look at things like the bandwidth of the system and the egress and ingress of data coming into the server. So that's kind of, again, a very whirlwind tour, but I wanted to show you could easily use a number of tools with API manager that effectively can be configured through plugins.
So what is next? Next steps, I'd love for you to look at other talks in the FHIR track, especially look at my talk on FHIR Search, which shows working with the API manager. Also, I would encourage you to attend Craig Lee's talk on FHIR profiles for Iris for Health. And we have a number of learning systems courses that you can take that I have up here on the screen. If you have any questions, please reach out to either me or my colleague Craig Lee, who is an expert on FHIR. And again, I thank you and I hope to see you next year in person.